Hello and welcome to a new edition of Business Insider. For a long time, Egypt has realized the importance of prudent management of water resources that has embarked on implementing an ambitious agenda for integrated management of water resources to achieve the sustainable development goals and other targets, including providing greater access to clean drinking water and, of course, sanitation, and improving water quality and promoting water use efficiency and recycling. Egypt is also implementing the principle of integrated management of water resources at all levels, including cooperation in the field of transboundary water resources. Tonight we'll be talking about Egypt's efforts to provide water and to make sure that a greater piece of land is being cultivated in the country to achieve food security and other sustainable development goals. That will be our main topic for tonight's episode. But as usual, dear viewers, we begin with a look at the top economic stories for this past week. His Excellency President Sisi has witnessed the inauguration of the nitrogen fertilizer complex in Ain as-Sukhna. The opening was attended by Premier Madbouli, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, Minister of Defense and Military Production, Mohammed Zaki, Petroleum and Mineral Resources Minister Tariq al-Mullah, as well as a number of ministers and senior statesmen. The nitrogenous fertilizer complex in Ain as-Sukhna includes 6 mega factories to produce nitrogenous fertilizers. The complex is implemented by ThyssenKrupp AG, a German industrial engineering and steel production multinational conglomerate in partnership with Egypt's Petrojets. The factories, with a total production capacity up to 1.7 million tons per year of phosphate, potassium and nitrogen fertilizers, serve the agricultural sector in Egypt. Nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium, or NPK, are the big 3 primary nutrients in commercial fertilizers. The surplus in production is to be exported to nearly 56 countries, according to the government's mega plan. The opening of that huge complex in Ain as-Sukhna was earlier today on this Wednesday. And Foreign Minister and President of the 27th session of the UN Climate Change Conference, Sameh Shukri, says that the UN Climate Conference hosted by the Red Sea resort city of Sharm el-Sheikh last November was a key step towards shifting from pledges to the actual implementation in countering climate change. Shukri's remarks came during his participation in the virtual ministerial meeting of the Major Economies Forum on Energy and Climate, the MEF, at an invitation from the U.S. Special Presidential Envoy for Climate, John Kerry. In his speech, the foreign minister underlined that the concerns of different parties involved should be put into consideration to ensure the success of international climate action, citing the COP27 success in Sharm el-Sheikh and establishing a fund to finance losses and damages suffered by the developing countries as a result of climate change. Shukri reiterated the COP27 call for reforming international financing institutions and development banks in a way that contributes to facilitating access to climate finance, in parallel with providing concessional grants to support the efforts aimed at confronting climate change. And according to initial estimates, Egypt's economy is expected to grow by 4.2% by the end of this the first half of this fiscal year, 2022-2023. The estimates were given by Planning and Economic Development Minister Hala Said. Despite the far-reaching impacts of the Russia-Ukraine war, the national economy is expected to attain an overall growth of about 4.2% by the end of the first half of this fiscal year, and by the end of fiscal year 2022-2023, according to the minister who made the remarks during the cabinet meeting held on Tuesday, that's yesterday. During the meeting, the Economic Development Minister also gave an overview of Egypt's economic performance indicators during the second quarter of fiscal year 2022-2023. According to the initial estimates, Egypt's economy is expected to attain growth during the second quarter of the current fiscal year. The minister, meanwhile, said that several economic sectors saw improvement in growth rates in the second quarter of this fiscal year. She indicated that global trade activity declined during 2022 to 5.4%, with expectations that it would reach 2.4% during the current year. That's all for the top stories this past week. And we now, dear viewers, take a short break before we come back and watch a report on tonight's topic, the government's efforts to provide water and access to water to the agricultural sector to achieve food security and other sustainable development goals. And we will also be introducing you to our distinguished guests who will be joining us here in the studio. So please stay with us. We'll be back momentarily. Welcome back, dear viewers. Thank you for staying with us here in the program. With us now here in the studio is Dr. Abdel Fattah Badr, a professor of plant genetics and biodiversity at Halwan University. Thank you very much, Dr. Badr, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And may I say a happy International Water Day, which is coming up this 22nd of March. So that's next Wednesday, 7 days from now. So dear viewers, on the occasion, of course, of this upcoming International Water Day on the 22nd of March, we'll be talking with Dr. Badr about the government's efforts here to provide access to water to achieve food security and other sustainable development goals. Allow us first, Dr. Badr, and dear viewers, to watch a report about the issue prepared by our colleagues Abir Hussein and Rasha Abdel Hamid.
Okay.
Media advisor to the Ministry of Agriculture and Land Reclamation, Ahmed Ibrahim, said upgrading the irrigation system is part of the state's efforts to manage water resources, realize optimal benefit from it, save water amounts required to support the state's water management plan, and increase reclamation of agricultural land to plant strategic crops with a view of realizing food security. In statements to MENA in January, the Ministry of Agriculture and Land Reclamation's media advisor said the new irrigation system also implies rationalizing use of composts, fertilizers, and pesticides that would be all benefiting farmers, as it would also help reduce cost of handling grass that usually grows in the course of using all the irrigation techniques. The official added that all efforts are meant to increase average yield per feddan and reduce energy costs. Meanwhile, the agriculture official highlighted the important role of media in raising awareness among farmers on the importance of joining the new irrigation system and benefiting for incentive packages offered by the state. He said the state has been incorporating a project to switch from flood irrigation to modern irrigation systems, adding that the first phase is being finalized, including 1 million feddans. He also pointed that the upcoming phase of the project aims to transform 3.7 million feddans from flood irrigation to modern irrigation systems, underlining the unprecedented financial advantages and benefits offered by the state to incentivize farmers according to President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi's directives in this regard.
Studio, we are in the company of Dr. Abdel Fattah Badr, Professor of Plant Genetics and Biodiversity at Helwan University. Dr. Badr, you watched the report with us. Yes. I mean, two things caught my attention in the report, if we can discuss it before going deeply in our discussion. First of all, the efficient use of energy, as far as the agricultural sector is concerned. And second, the so-called modern irrigation techniques.
Yes. Efficient use of energy and efficient use of water as well. Management of energy, that's to use water to produce as much water as we can with the minimum of energy, to save energy and to produce water. And the other approach is to manage water and the modern irrigation methods. Of course, the modern irrigation methods is called by dripping. Dripping means to drop water for the plants, so each plant will get as much water as it needs. So we wouldn't just drain water into plants and waste water by evaporation to the air. Unfortunately, we've been used to the irrigation by draining water, excessive water to the soil. Now we don't have the luxury to waste water in this way. So the water we have, we need to manage it and use modern methods. The dripping is one, the spraying is another, and the smart irrigation is the third, which is most recent, is to actually test the plants, and they only provide water when the plant needs water. So there is many testing systems that are like sensors, so you can actually have sensors. When you sense the plant that needs water, then you can add water to the plants. These are the recent irrigation methods.
Right. Dr. Badr, the government is keen on achieving sustainable development goals. It has a vision for SDGs, and one of the most important SDGs is concerned with food and food security. So how do you see the strategic planning here in Egypt to provide bigger access to water so as to achieve food security and other SDGs?
I think the government has organized the Water Day in 2021, 2021. And after this conference, they actually wrote a strategic national strategic plan to manage and water. And these have actually 5 or 4 projects. The first one is strategic planning to promote right to water. So right to water, right to drinking water, right to irrigation water has been considered as a human right. So everybody has the right to have sufficient water for its use. This is one. That's one. It was a good idea to make it as part of the 2030 Sustainable Development vision of the country. And the second was infrastructure projects to provide drinking water and sanitation. As you know, we have major project for providing drinking water, clean drinking water to.
That's goal number 6.
The goal number SDGs. In the SDGs. So this is another major project of the government that was actually studied and planned after organizing the Water Day of 1921. The third
2021.
2021. Yes. Sorry, 2021. And the third was effort to provide drinking water to all parts of Egypt, not only to big cities like Cairo, Alexandria, and the capitals of the governorate, but for every village in all countries. And we also know that the fourth one is the Egyptian Rural Development Project called the Haya Karima,
Yes.
which is very ambitious, and this would, in about 3 years, would provide water and sanitation for most citizens of Egypt. That has been a dream for Egyptians for tens of probably hundreds of years, which is
the Decent Life Presidential Initiative.
For everyone. And the fifth major project was National Water Management Projects, to manage the water we have for agriculture and for drinking. And the last project was international efforts and at multilateral levels. Of course, our water supplies are not all in our country, and we know that the River Nile is not coming from Egypt. So we need international cooperation to secure our share of the River Nile, and also to, in addition to the River Nile, I think the Nile provide about 55 billion cubic meter, but we still have about 20 more through salinization of water, through the reuse of wastewater and the drainage water.
Yes.
So by this management, we increase the amount of water available for expanding our agriculture in the big project like the 1.5 million acres project and the New Delta project. Those are two major projects that are going on for some years, and probably in few years the agricultural area of Egypt may be increased by about 2.53 million acres.
That will be I mean, as a multiple, that would be what, like a 50% increase, a double,
like
30%?
Yeah, we have about 6 million or 7 million. If you add about 3, that would about 50% or 40%, which is a big success. Which is a big success.
All right.
If that this also will be watered by the minimum of water, but would increase it would be a new style of agriculture, not like the River Nile agriculture with canals and water use as we used before, but it would be actually used by the recent methods of agriculture and like draping and spraying and smart irrigation.
Yes, Dr. Badr, the International Water Day was declared by the United Nations in the year 1993.
Yes.
Any background on why March 22nd was chosen, or why March or springtime or 1993? I mean, what was the drive or the motive behind the declaration of the International Water Day?
It's probably based on the climate change and the possibilities that the water rain will not be regular as we used to have. So there will be some parts of the world where the water would be less available, and we need to manage water, and we need to coordinate the water use between different countries.
Okay.
So it's not only to have a water day for each country, but to have water days for regions, like the MENA region in the Middle East, because most of the MENA region suffer from shortage of water, like Jordan, like North Africa.
First country that comes to mind.
Jordan probably is the most severe case. So we need to organize with each other and the other neighbors to get as much as possible from the water available for all of us.
And it seems the 90s indeed was, we saw a shift. You mentioned the beginning of big talk about climate change, the beginning of or not the beginning, but the rise of some conflicts regarding water issues. So the 90s was a big
Yeah, we had a abnormal pattern of rainfall in some parts of the world. Some parts there was dry. Summer last year in Europe and then Somalia.
It was the 90s
yes,
also when
in
we
the
saw
90s.
that
In the last few years, we have extreme weather changes, including unexpected waterfall and rains and the floods and so on. And in some parts, we have extreme water deficiency. And in other parts we have flooding, like in Pakistan and other countries. So we need to do some prediction of what's going on. We need to have scientific cooperation, and we have also administrative cooperation between different countries. And Egypt, of course, is very critical because our population is growing fast, and our share of water is not growing as much as our population.
Indeed. Of the points you mentioned, Dr. Badr, could you please highlight for us some of the infrastructure projects here in Egypt to provide drinking water and sanitation?
Yes, drinking water. I have a list from some statements of the government and the records from the literature. With this projects, drinking water would be provided for most villages, and sanitation will be available for most countries. So we have new desalination projects. We have new water supplies from underground water. So we try to get sufficient water available for each citizen, because it is a human right for each citizen. That's with regard to the drinking water. And also for agriculture, we try to find the new means to provide some water, and we have two big projects in agriculture. What they call the New Delta, which is about 2.2 million faddans. One would be agriculture, 1 million faddans will be agricultural land, and the other would be other strategic investment in industrial settlements. And so it would not only for agriculture, but would be like settlements of societies, new societies moving from the delta to the west of the delta to initiate new settlements and new industry, new activities, universities, schools, other commercial activities. So you have a new society moving part of the Egyptian society from the old delta and the valley to the west of the delta and to other parts of Egypt. This is called the New Delta project, and another project is called the 1.5 million Faddan project, and this is in different governorates in Egypt, like Al Kharga oasis and the Dakhla oasis, and it was 3 stages actually. The first stage was about 500,000 Faddan in Al Farafra and Dakhla oasis, and Toshka, of course, has 143,000 Faddan, and Gharb al-Marashda, and the second stage was about 490,000 Faddans. This will be also in Komombo and some governors in the south of Egypt, including the west of Minya and Siwa. And the third stage will be about 510,000 Faddan in Al Farafra and Atur in Sinai, and also some parts in west of Minya as well. This is in the south of Egypt and the west of the Nile Valley and in Sinai.
So not just the Nile Delta or the valley
it's
area.
not in. It is on the borders of the delta. It would extend the delta to the west and to the east, and in the oasis and in some parts of Sinai. That is the 1.5 million Faddan.
Yes, Dr. Badr. And it seems that this is a dynamic process. I mean, it will be a continuous process.
Yes.
I mean, I see here, like the government saying they have a 6 5-year plans, 6 5-year plans until the year 2050.
Yes.
And the environment changes.
Yes.
Everything around us changes.
Yes. Yes.
The climate changes.
Yes. Yes.
You know, the relationship with your neighbors, or the deals, or the new agreements, perhaps on sharing of water, and so this is a dynamic process that will have to be a continuous one, and one that adapts with the change.
Yeah. Of course, and the budget, you can't expect a budget for 2050 now.
Right.
It would be a budget for continuous periods of time, 3 years plan, and then another 3 plans, and another 3 plans. But if you judge on the whole from 2014, which is this project started, a big success has been achieved, and it will continue to be achieved. These 2 million or 2.5 million faddans will not be finished in 3 years, but it would be finished in 6 years. And after 6 years, new extension will be made by new plans. But on the longer term, we have a long-term plan, which is good. So we have a vision for the future, and we are aware that our population will increase, and we need more water as we increase our land for agriculture.
When we talk,
and we need to increase our agricultural production, because to minimize the imports. You know, we import much of our food, so we need to minimize the imports of the major food we import.
Indeed. And Dr. Badr, when we talk about what's called rationalizing the use of water resources, could you tell us what is exactly meant by this? Because
rationalizing means controlling the use. We should not leave the taps open, and we should not wash our cars in the streets with drinking water. We need to control and organize the water use.
Yes.
We need to minimize wasting water for unnecessary purposes. Water is precious for us and expensive as well. So if we have a precious and expensive water, we need to rationalize it. We need to control it. We need to manage and not only manage, but to do some incentives for the people who save water, and to do some punishment for people who actually waste water or misuse water. Because water is a major wealth for Egypt. It's a major source of our life. So if the water is the source of our agriculture and our drinking, then we need to take care of this, and we need to rationalize it by incentives and some punishment or some controls.
And I mean water, the Nile River, to be more specific, was the reason one of the oldest, if not the greatest, and first great civilization in the world was evolved. I mean, this is why, because of the water, because of the Nile River. People lived around this river and established the great early civilizations.
We need to keep this going on for forever.
We need to remember this.
We got to remember this, and we need to work on it. We need also to keep the River Nile water clean. We have too many ships in the River Nile. I assume some people wouldn't like saying this, but I think we need to keep the River Nile water very clean, because it's a source of our agriculture, it's a source of our drinking water. Other countries have rain, and they can use rivers for transport. We use it for transport, but we overuse it for many ships in the River Nile. We need to keep an eye on the River Nile, and to keep its water very clean, and to test it every time we use it, and we continue to control or rationalize the use of the River Nile water.
And it was because of the black sand, right, that this Nile River water created around it, that Egypt was called Egypt, right? I mean, this black sand.
Probably this is a say, but I'm not sure of it. I wouldn't. I'm not sure why Egypt was called Egypt, but it was said. Somebody said that
the black
it may
sand.
be
The clay.
A clay used to come from
The flooding?
Ethiopia with the flooding, and it is the clay that made the soil of Egypt fertile.
Yes.
And unfortunately, after the high dam,
the food basket of the
food
world
basket of the Roman Empire, of the Roman Empire. And with the recent years, after building the high dam, the flooding was kept in the Lake Nasser. So we need to use more fertilizers in recent years, and that was a side effect of the Aswan Dam.
And during the era of Prophet Joseph as well, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we were the food basket.
That was climate change as well, because Joseph expected drought for 7 years and water for 7 years. So when we talk about climate change, we may say climate change is not a new phenomenon on Earth, but it happens in Egypt at the time of Egypt. 7 years and seven years.
Yes.
And the River Nile has been part of the Egyptian life since the Egypt as a country started. And we know Egypt was the first country that has a government. It has the first country who established a state. The state is Egypt. When we say Egypt is the mother of the world, it is not. It is true, because we are the first country to be controlled by to regulate our life together, and to have a government. Even we have the North and South governments were united by an armor in one Egypt.
And to have women's rights.
To have women's rights, we have queens in the old Egypt.
Dr. Badr, I want to talk a little bit about irrigation and the final minutes that we have here. So, according to the modern irrigation techniques, how best can we use our water resources to cultivate bigger areas of land? So again, with the eyes on achieving food security.
Yeah, to use smart irrigation, and to use to do it more mechanical. It's not made by farmers like we used to use, but to cultivate big lands with machines. So water will be easy to spread in small amounts as much as on large scale. And to desalinize water from the sea, and to use groundwater for irrigation, and to cultivate lands, crops, varieties that use less water compared to the current crops, who are efficient in breeding new cultivars that can withstand drought and what we call drought tolerance species. We also to control the use of fertilizers and pesticides, to minimize use of fertilizers and pesticides, and to make today there was an opening of the fertilizers,
a nitrogenous complex in
NPK,
yes,
nitrogen, phosphorus, calcium, potassium. These are the most important elements for plant growth, because nitrogen is required.
When I read the story, it called them the big three.
Yeah, it is the most essential elements, minerals for plant growth. Because phosphorus actually is important element for DNA, and the DNA is responsible for the growth of cells, not only in plant cells, in human cells and animal cells. So to grow, for the cells to divide and the plants to grow, and even for human being to grow, cells need to divide and they need phosphorus to synthesize the DNA, because DNA has to be copied every time the cells are divided.
You know, the more you talk, Dr. Badr, I want to listen to you more, but we only have a minute or two left. But I had a sense that you were getting us into an area where you were going to say that we can benefit from artificial intelligence or AI.
Yes, of course.
In water.
It's good that you said artificial intelligence, because artificial intelligence will save time to develop new approaches with the minimum of costs. To use intelligence to find the new ways of irrigation, to develop new crop cultivars, and that would be important in the future. Smart agriculture is to test, to sense when the plants need water and to give them as much water as they need. Not too much, and so you don't waste water.
Indeed. Dear viewers, unfortunately, that's all the time we have here for this episode. On behalf of you, we thank very much our distinguished guest, Dr. Abdel Fattah,
thank you very much,
Professor of Plant Genetics and Biodiversity at Helwan University. Always a great pleasure to have you with us,
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It's my pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you, sir, and thank you, dear viewers, for watching us. Inshallah, next week, same time, is a new episode. Until then, this is Muhammad Abdel Rahim, and this is goodbye.